aren't going to pay $95 for such a small amount of food. I'm going to have you fired for talking back to a customer.
r/entitled parents. Our first story we'll be reading today. Kid finds a bike in my backyard. Mom goes berserk when I take it back. From user Puffman Now Yeah. And after that, my dad felt my savings should go to my brother. From user Clariano6. And after that, dumb kid almost gets me hospitalized at Ren Fair. Learns his lesson real fast. From user Lily Vic. And after that, entitled mom tries to get me fired for refusing to provide free food. Loses over $300. From Lucifer himself. And then we'll be finishing up with entitled dad gets mad at me for not helping his son on an attraction. From user Smokin' Toad. Thank you so much to our authors for letting us read your stories. And if you're an author who would like to hear your stories on the channel, please submit them to the r/Mr. Reddit subreddit. And welcome to the newest members of the Re-Army, Jamal, Bahis, and Jay. And if you're new, join the Re-Army by subscribing for new stories from Reddit every single day. Kid finds a bike in my backyard. Mom goes berserk when I take it back. Backstory. I'm a single parent. I have a beautiful girl that's turning 5 in August. The past year, I have been fighting with my ex that tried to keep my kid away from me. Lawyers aren't cheap, and being single doesn't exactly help with my finances. Couple of months ago, I won the lawsuit and I finally got to have my kid at my home again. For the past few weeks, she was saying she wanted a bicycle, but still recovering from the lawsuit bills, I wasn't able to afford it. Past week, I got my summer bonus, which finally gave me the financial boost I needed. So, yesterday, I finally was able to buy my little girl her bike she wanted so badly. I enjoyed my time with her riding our bikes, but then it was getting time for dinner, which I still had to make. So we head back home and park the bikes in the backyard. We go inside and I start making dinner. After about 10 minutes, I spot movement in the corner of my eye through the kitchen window that's on the side of the house. I see this kid, guessing 6 or 7 years old, just casually strolling by with the brand new bike I just got today. My heart dropped, and I run to the front door, hoping I'd catch him before he rides away. I was lucky I did. I yanked the bike out of his hands and freaked out to him, saying it was mine, and he had no right to just walk into other people's yards and take things. I was upset. I forced him to get the heck off my property and set the bike inside my front halfway, thinking it's over. Boy, was I wrong. After comforting my little girl that never saw me this mad, poor thing, I returned to the kitchen to continue making dinner. 15 minutes later, doorbell rings. It's the kid and his evil mother.
You give my boy his bike back. He found it. It's his.
He found it in my backyard. I got it for my kid today. You should try teaching your darn kid some manners. He shouldn't trespass on other people's property to take their things.
Don't tell me how to raise my kid. Give me the bike back, or I'm calling the police.
Call the darn police. And I slammed the door in her face. By this point, my 4-year-old is crying her eyes out, and I get to comfort her again, as she's thinking she's losing her brand new bike. Her sobbing finally over, I try continuing to make dinner. Yet again. Preparations done, I'm about to put it all on the stove. Doorbell. I flip out, storm to the door, violently open it, getting ready to just explode in her face. Guess what? She actually called the cops. I instantly calm down when I see it's the police and invite one of the 2 officers inside while the other stays with the evil woman. I explain the situation and show him the box the bike came in, along with the receipt that has my name on it. He shrugs and apologized for the inconvenience, assured me I won't be bothered again. I let him out and close the door with a smug smile on my face. I check the front window to see what's happening, and I see her go into full tantrum. It ends with her in handcuffs and on the back seat of the patrol car. Bye, Felicia. Don't know what happened to her, and I don't care. I finally finished dinner, and my kid still has her bike. That's all that matters to me. Boy, what a day. Next we've got, my dad felt my savings should go to my brother. So this happened a couple of years ago, but it still just hurts. My dad and I have never really seen eye to eye. He grew up with no sisters and an awful mother figure, and none of his friends have daughters, only sons. I don't blame him for struggling to raise a girl when he had absolutely no reference point, but he didn't need to show blatant favoritism towards my brother. I've always been the black sheep a little. My parents and younger brother have always been this nice little trio. My brother is a mummy's boy, but dad dotes on him regardless. He's 4 years younger than me. I'm 18, he's 14. I've struggled to find my place in the family. Even my standing as which sibling I am isn't certain because my dad accidentally impregnated a girl at 19, had my half-brother, and I was born 14 years later. My older brother was enough in my life that I don't feel like the oldest child, but not enough to feel like I'm the middle. I'm just my dad's retrial at parenting, and my brother is the beneficiary of all his practice. Now, aside from that little rant, the actual story. My brother and I are very musical. I play a multitude of instruments. He just plays saxophone, and he's good, always has been. He suffered classic younger sibling syndrome. We were in a much better financial position when I began playing clarinet that I got a really good beginner intermediate model that I still play today. When he started, about 4 years later, things had gotten tight, so he had to rent his from the local concert band, and it wasn't great. Originally, it was fine because my parents didn't want to invest in something he might not commit to, but he did and loved it. At this point, I was 15, and I had been working for 2 years at a local sports club, earning less than minimum wage because I was underage, working my butt off and saving a pretty hefty percentage of my income. My father, who felt responsible for my job since he knew the owner, but I had actually gotten the job myself, decided he was entitled to my savings, about $500 at the time. His exact words were,
We could use your savings to buy your brother a better saxophone.
God, it crushed me. First of all, you cannot get a sax better than the one he has for only $500. Secondly, what kind of father asks one child to give up practically 2 years of work for another? It made me feel like he had more pride or hope for his son that his daughter's savings should contribute towards it, even though at the time I was saving for a student-level clarinet, and he knew that. He never offered to pay the money back or anything, and thankfully, after I asked Mom what she thought of it and she lost her mind, it was never brought up again. Though he has asked for my savings since, and then I've said no. Can't wait to move out next year. Edit. So I should make a couple of things clear. My father didn't actually take the money. Mom shut that situation down real quick, but it didn't stop him from asking and trying to manipulate me into giving them up for a long time. I live in New Zealand, and my accounts have been in my name since I was 13. My parents have just as much right to them as the stranger across the street, absolute zero. Credit isn't really a thing here, so that's not an issue either. Can't believe all the attention this got, and thanks for all the advice. Edit 2. I have half a year of high school left, and then next year I'm moving 8 hours away to university. So that's where my savings are going. I can't move out now. Also, to explain the minimum wage situation, in New Zealand, minimum wage is $17.70, and it tends to go up every year. However, you don't have to pay minimum wage to employees under the age of 16. You can pay them whatever you want. I started on $10 an hour at age 13, and nearly a year into the job, I went up to $14.25, as that was the current minimum wage. And that's where my wage stayed until I turned 16, even when the minimum wage rose. Next up, we've got Dumb Kid Almost Gets Me Hospitalized at Renaissance Fair, Learns His Lesson Real Fast. Disclaimer. On mobile, so apologies for any formatting, spelling, or grammatical errors. I'm not the greatest of storytellers, but I'll try to be as clear and concise as possible. Too long didn't read at the bottom. For our cast, we've got me, Pirate Queen of the Seven Seas, as dubbed by the Queen of the Renaissance Fair. Husband, wonderfully loving husband, and first mate. We've got the Crotch Goblin, we've got the nice mom of the Crotch Goblin, and we've got my awesome vendor friend who works at the fair. My local Renaissance Fair is one of the best and most exciting events my husband and I like to go to. We love to dress up and sometimes even volunteer as roaming entertainers. This year, we ended up just being regular patrons, but that was okay with us. The day had already started off a bit rocky, and it seemed like everything was against us, even getting to the event. A normally 10 or so minute drive turned into roughly half an hour as there was a marathon event that same day, which resulted in multiple streets being closed off. Streets that led to the highway we needed to get on. When we finally arrived at the fair, we finished getting ready in our costumes, got into the fair, and had a mostly wonderful day, despite the on and off rain. Toward the evening, we had met up with some friends and were making our way toward a fire pit by the Viking tents to warm up a bit. As we walked, we noticed a roughly 10-year-old boy, the goblin, with a toy bow and arrow who was repeatedly shooting it in the air and letting it land onto the ground. We all thought this incredibly stupid, even commenting that he would hurt someone if he wasn't careful. However, since he was positioned in a bit of a clearing a ways away from the fire pit, we thought nothing of it. Oh, how naive we were. 20 to 30 minutes of chatting later, I was getting a little too warm being so close to the fire, so I opted to stand and back up a bit. While standing, I suddenly felt something that felt like a foam ball pelt me in the face with force. I didn't even see it coming, and my left eye felt like I had something stuck underneath my contact lens. It took me a solid 2 or 3 minutes to figure out what had actually happened, as I was busy trying to tend to whatever was stuck in my eye. Looking on the ground to my right, I see it. The arrow. That little jerk shot an arrow at me. What had actually happened was that little goblin shot the arrow into the air like he was doing before, but it had unfortunately come down and bounced off my wide-brimmed pirate hat, which caused it to flop right into my left eye. Thank the gods it did, because if I wasn't wearing that hat, it most certainly would have shot me right in the eye. Realizing what happened, I looked up to see Crotch Goblin staring at me with a meek expression. I glared at him with the passion of 1,000 burning suns, and the following brief conversation ensued. "Don't do it again." I said this in a tone that read, "Don't you dare try it."
I didn't mean to.
His tone was almost accusatory, as if he were offended that I called him out. "I know you didn't mean to. Just don't do it again," I said more sternly. In truth, I was absolutely livid and really wanted to lay into the little brat, but I decided to simply let it go, as I just wanted to move on and enjoy what little time was left of the day. Husband, however, was just as livid and sometimes reacts a bit more aggressively than me. He was absolutely fuming and glared at Goblin as he sprinted away towards the seats at the outdoor stage area. A few minutes later, it was time to end the night with the Light and Fire dance show, which is one of my favorite things to watch. We made our way to the front row seats and sat down as we waited for the show to begin, but husband was still looking around for Goblin, hoping to find his parents. Even though I told him to let it go and that I was fine, he insisted on at least speaking to one of our vendor friends about it. So I agreed, but told him to hurry so he didn't miss the show. After asking one of our friends to save his seat, husband took off toward friend's tent to speak with him about the situation to see what we could do about it. A few minutes later, the show began, and my friend and I watched the first few acts. Around 10 minutes later, I was starting to get worried because hadn't seen husband come back yet, and I didn't want him to miss the whole show. So I told my friend that if he didn't show up within 5 minutes, I'd go and find him. 2 minutes go by, and I see my friend hurriedly walking by at the back of the seats, which was a bit surprising to see as he's quite a larger, older man who uses a cane to walk. I then see husband sprinting to catch up, and the two disappear behind a crowd. I strained my neck to try and spot them, but ended up not being able to look past the crowd of people gathered around. With no luck, I simply tried to focus on the show and waited for husband to take his place beside me. Sure enough, he does so after another 5 to 10 minutes, and I eagerly asked him what happened. What he told me was that he had spoken with our friend about the situation, who promptly retrieved the owner of the fair itself. Then all three of them went to find Goblin. Apparently, he was easy to spot, sitting with his family in the back row of seats, and friend snatched up Goblin, whose mother followed to see what was going on. As husband was telling me this, I was worried that mother was going to be an entitled Karen, but she actually turned out to be a really nice lady. Turns out, Nice Mom was actually one of the vendors there, the one that happens to make my favorite homemade root beer. Also, turns out that Goblin wasn't even supposed to have that bow and arrow, and had bought it without his mother's permission or knowledge, even after being explicitly told not to. When husband told her what had happened to me, she was absolutely livid. According to husband, nice mom promptly took the goblin's bow and arrows away and scolded him for being an absolute idiot. He tried to lie and say,
I wasn't shooting it at anyone.
but this only made her scold at him more, giving him a much-needed lesson in how gravity works. Apparently, the way she looked at Goblin pretty well guaranteed the whooping for him when they got home. She even offered us some free root beer, but we declined as we didn't want to impose, hence the situation was more or less resolved. Our intention wasn't really to punish Goblin for what he had done to me, as I was virtually unharmed. It was more to keep him from doing it again and possibly really hurting someone else. Though, I gotta say, it was pretty nice to hear that I got some justice. After hearing husband's side, I couldn't stop grinning for the rest of the night, and the show continued to be a blast to watch. To those of you who made it this far, thank you so much. I know it's a pretty anticlimactic end to such a lengthy build-up, but I can guarantee the revenge felt great at the time, and it always makes me smile when I think about it. Next we've got Entitled Mom Tries to Get Me Fired for Refusing to Provide Free Food. Loses over $300. Sup, dudes. I've had a lot of these experiences at almost every job I've had. This is the first of many to come. I'll start chronologically and work forward. Age 16. Job: cashier at Mango Joe's Grill, SeaWorld, San Diego. Cast and crew: we've got the entitled mom, the poor husband, entitled kids 1 through 3, the manager, and yours truly. It was a pretty standard shift job. You stand at the end of a restaurant leading to the dining section and ring up orders for the items you see. Take the money and give the change. I had an awesome take no prisoners manager at this job who was on the lawful side of the morality scale. I spot my manager looking closely at a woman who I had seen talk to my counterpart a few times. There's 2 cashiers for this restaurant, both at the exit to the dining section, and the manager is giving this woman an extremely upset look. We make eye contact, and she nods in my direction, then towards Karen, marking her as my customer this time. Karen attempts to go up to the counterpart, and I call her over to my register instead. She had on her tray $95 worth of food, 7 beef taco bowls. Her eyes visibly bulge when she sees it ring up on the register. That's a total of $95. Cash or card?
I'm an honored guest in the park and was told my food would be free.
In that case, I'll need my manager.
Look here, you crappy fat jerk. I'm here with my 3 precious babies, and we aren't going to pay $95 for such a small amount of food.
The terrors behind her started giggling at their mom's outburst. Mind you, I have the body of a football player with a few extra pounds, so in training, I was taught to slouch and bend my knees to look less imposing. I'm a 6-foot-tall, 275-pound white dude. I stand up and stop slouching. The hellspawn stop giggling, and Karen takes a visible step back. I say, just a smidge louder this time, if you want free food, I will need to have my manager override the pricing, and she's on her way now.
I'm going to have you fired for talking back to a customer. We are always right. You'll never work here again.
My manager was like, is there an issue with the payment? You're holding up the line.
He was threatening me.
He was not. He's the nicest employee we have on registers. Ego boost.
We are special guests at the park. We don't have to pay for this.
In that case, could I see your tickets?
We don't have them on us. We didn't think we needed them inside the park.
Entitled Kid 1, while holding 5 tickets.
Here you go, Mommy.
I notice that the group contains a 5th person who looks like he's given up on life. Head in his hand, finger and thumb rubbing temple. These are just regular tickets, not VIP tickets. You need to pay for your food. Entitled Mom turns visibly red in the face and throws her tray with the force of 1,000 suns across the room and into the wall.
I will not pay more money. I've spent $500 here already today.
Well, now you know you have to pay for that no matter what.
I will not. I want to speak to your manager.
I am the manager, and you are staying put until security gets here. Then you are leaving. I step out from my register and stand in front of the exit, blocking Karen and her hellspawn. She stomps towards me and starts smacking her flabby fat hands into my chest, trying to get me away from the door. Her kids are audibly crying and don't think the situation is funny anymore. Around this time, security shows up and my awesome manager has her escorted out of the restaurant and barred from the park. $500 for 2 adults and 3 kids at SeaWorld means she got maybe 3 souvenirs and her tickets. What a waste. And our final story of the day. Entitled Dad gets mad at me for not helping his son on an attraction. So this happened like 2 to 3 weeks ago. And sorry, this is on mobile. It's late, and I didn't want to start my computer. Lovely cast. We've got the entitled dad, the adorable kid, yours truly, and the adorable kid's mom. So, I work at an arcade at a bowling alley, and on Saturdays, we usually have birthday parties. In the arcade, we have something called the Fun Zone, where there are 3 attractions: the Laser Frenzy, Time Freak, and Spin Zone bumper cars. Only important one is the bumper cars. We have a couple of rules on bumper cars, which are: children must be at least 36 centimeters, 3 feet, to ride. They must be 3 years old or older to ride, and no one should be on anyone's lap at all. You know, for safety reasons. So I take those rules pretty seriously since I like to do my job as best I can. While I was working the counter, I saw this pretty huge group of people, and since I was the only one working at the 2 areas, which is pretty normal, someone goes and asks if I can start the attraction. So someone did, and he said,
"Hey, man, who work in the bumper cars?"
"That would be me, sir. I'll be there in just a sec." I tend to have a jolly personality, so the customers think I don't hate my job, which I don't, but oh lord, this guy. Let me tell you, there are exactly 7 cars for only 7 people, so I walk over there and open the gate. Then I count out until I get to the adorable kid. He looked a bit small, so I just asked him, "Hey, dude, can I ask how old you are?" Then comes his mother. "Is there a problem, sir?" "Oh no, I just want to check how old he is and know his height." "Why do you need to know that?" "It's mainly for safety." Before I could finish my sentence, entitled dad steps in.
"Why is my son not on the bumper cars?"
"Well, I'd just like to know the height and the age of your son so I can determine if he is eligible to ride the bumper cars."
"He's 3 years old,"
he said angrily. "Awesome. Let's just measure him and see if he can ride." I took adorable kid to our measuring board, and he was over the requirement by a little. "Looks like you can, buddy. I'll put you first on the next one, promise."
"Why not put him on this one?"
"All seats are filled up, sir. He's gonna have to wait."
"How long is he going to wait?"
"It's 4 minutes per ride." Entitled dad smacks his cheeks.
"Man!"
After the 4 minutes, I escorted the first group out of the bumper cars so the next one can come in. I always try to help some of the kids get up out of the cars if they need it, and that's what I was doing for adorable kid. Though it seemed he didn't need it since he got up on his own and managed to buckle himself in. Smart kid. But I guess entitled dad didn't like the fact he did it all by himself because he came inside the area and started yelling at me.
"Why didn't you help my son get on the bumper car? How long have you been working here, huh?"
6, almost 7 months, sir.
"And you can't help my child get settled on this darn thing?"
Sir,
He what?
He was able to get up on his own and buckled his seatbelt on his own. I'm trying to keep my cool since he was all up in my face.
"You need to do your freaking job and help my child."
Okay, sir, I said while trying to still be professional. I pressed the button for the game to start, and while the music was playing, I could hear entitled dad talking about how I was being rude to him and called his kid ugly. I didn't. And he should get my manager to get me fired. 4 minutes passed by. An adorable kids group is done, so I start escorting them out, and one kid in the group couldn't unbuckle his seatbelt. I went over to her, unbuckled her seatbelt, and helped her down. She looked smaller than adorable kid. Then I hear from the back.
"Oh, so now you're gonna help kids now? Good job."
I just ignore him and continue doing my job that I don't know how to do. Maybe 2 hours later, I see the mom and the entitled dad talking to each other, and entitled dad comes up to me and says,
"I apologize for the way I treated you. You are a good person, and I appreciate the hard work you do in this building."
"Thank you. Y'all have a nice evening. If that isn't the most fake apology ever, I don't know what is. Hope I never see him again."
Leave a re in the comments, or I'm going to take your YouTube account and give it to my son.
And congrats to our re-generals of the day, Fleetfoot01, Abodi Animates, Prezi Vlogs, CJ Rocksteady, and Tombstone284. That's all for now, but don't be blue. I'll be back soon with more stories for you. Remember to listen to Mr. Reddit every night, so your dreams will be wonderful like you are and bright.